without cutting off, I think, very constructive conversations you all might be having, I'd like to call this meeting of the Community Reparations Commission to order. I do have a remark. And you know I always have remarks, but I do have a remark. If I could have your attention just for a second. I want to broach a subject that many of you all have been talking to me about privately and have been on the back burner and been squelched as much as possible by whoever is in opposition to it for whatever reason, politically, ideologically, legally, economically, etc. But I've been working in a way that suits my profession. I'm a political scientist. I study and I research. That's what I do. Let me say this to you. Your work that you were doing in your IFAs is excellent. It's not to be at all diminished. It's important for this community. You all have your pulse on the needs of the community. And what's most important, I've noticed how much you have your guards up for offenses against the welfare of our community. I appreciate that. I assume that. The work that I've been doing, though, I need to add as an addendum, in that we are charged through the resolutions of the city and through the county as one of our many charges, but we are charged with increasing generational wealth. And in doing so, reducing the disparities by race in Asheville City and Bladen County. Many of your proposals have been designed to do just that, whether it's education or healthcare, economic development, justice, housing. You've been looking at how to reduce those disparities. One fundamental thing that has come through in the research that I've done with the writings that we're doing, since several of you may have read some of the same materials, is that the key element in reducing disparities is increasing the assets of African Americans. And increasing the assets means direct cash payment. Now, that's a topic that I realize is not to be discussed, but I'm putting it on the table for you. I'm putting it on the table for you. There are studies that indicate that it's effective. It is not do not take stereotypical responses and that the folks will just waste the money. They do not. They tend to address the social determinants that you all are addressing in the same ways that you're suggesting through policy, they do individually. We're receiving enough cash to do it. And so, I'm saying to you that in my remarks to you, please consider the absolute need in order to be successful is to increase the assets of African Americans. Roll call.
Hi, everyone. Welcome. And so I am about to call roll. As I call your name, please answer with an aye. Dwayne Barton. Norma Baines.
Here.
Renata Conyers.
Here.
Christopher Gordon.
Here.
Roy Harris.
Here.
Joyce Harrison. Present. Shonda Jackson. Kimberly Jones.
Here.
Dewana Little. I'm here. Dwayne McAfee.
Here.
Tamari Macon.
Here.
Bobette Mays.
Present.
Glenda McDowell.
Here.
Tamara Miller.
Here.
Dwight Mullen.
Present.
Mildred Nance Carson.
Here.
Bernard Oliphant.
Present.
Thomas Priester. Jesse Ray. Dwayne Richardson. Eric Robinson. Raynita Waters. C.C. Weston. D. Williams.
Here.
M.Z. Yehuda.
Here.
Keith Young.
Here.
D. Burris.
Here.
Tiffany DeBella. Shakiki Giles Bayton.
Here.
Sandu McPeters.
Here. Thank you. Thank you. I'm going to have action. Approve
All right. We do have a quorum, and our action item is the approval of the agenda and meeting minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read over the meeting minutes from last meeting? Has everyone reviewed the agenda? Are there any amendments? All right, would someone like to make a motion to approve the
So
agenda?
moved.
Second. All right, it has been approved. It's turned over to you, Christine.
Hi, everyone. Christine Edwards here, Project Manager for the Community Reparations Commission. Happy to be here again with you all. So in order to just make this a little bit smoother, what I was able to do was actually add page numbers to your agenda packet so that we can follow along. So I hope that makes this a little bit smoother today. So hopefully you all had a chance to read through the survey data. Overall, it was positive. The first question, did you have the opportunity to express your ideas, thoughts, and opinions at the May 15th meeting? Overwhelmingly, people responded with yes, although we did not have a really robust participation in this survey. And I think that participation starts to wane sometimes over the summer, and because we have been at this for quite a while. But I do want to encourage y'all to please, put your comments in the survey, because we want to make sure that your thoughts and opinions are getting out there to share with everyone. If you look at page 10, what did you like most about the May 15th meeting? A lot of people expressed that they really appreciated the IFA presentations and the Q&A session. And then the next question, in terms of what needed improvement, we heard several things, such as, information that was shared about the data requests and just capacity to fulfill those data requests. And I do want to point out one comment that is, someone says that they do not have access to the dashboard. We did make that data available, so I invite you all, if you want to just reach out to me in an email. If you're not having access to that data dashboard, I can send it to you. Make sure you have access to it, and so that you can actually see the data that's being completed. All right. And then the final question, share any suggestions for agenda topics you would like to be considered for future meetings. There's a lot of information here. We want to be able to pull out specific examples, and so if anything really jumps out at you, I encourage you to reach out to the program team, reach out to myself or folks from the city, so that we can implement some of these suggestions too. And I think the retreat came up a couple of times, so that'll be a topic that we talk about today as well, about the agenda topics for the retreat and just making sure we're all on the same page in terms of the objectives of the retreat. And this is going to be a collaborative process of deciding how we're going to use that time. Questions, comments about the survey?
All right, we're on the IFA.
I failed to, in my enthusiasm to offer something else to you, I failed to acknowledge officials in our audience. And I've done this on several occasions. I apologize, City Manager, for not recognizing you. But I can't see if there are others who are in public positions that we should acknowledge, city officials, county officials. Thank you.
All right, we are on our IFA updates, and the first IFA to update us will be housing.
All right, and just as a reminder, we do have 10 minutes each, and then after the IFAs go, there's going to be an additional 10 minutes for Q&A and discussion. And we do this so that we can just stay on track. But I know that this is a time that everybody wants to kind of get their questions in and really have that back and forth and feedback. So I'm going to limit it, but we still need to make sure we stay on track.
Great. Good evening, all. My name is Salama Naya Merritt. I am the facilitator for the Housing IFA. We meet at the Grant Center on the second and fourth Tuesday of every month from 6 to 8 p.m. I do want to note for this month, we're meeting the second, oh yes, it's up there, the second and fourth, so it's usually the second and the third, but this month it is the second and the fourth Tuesday. So much of what I'll share this evening has already been shared at the last time that we presented. We talked about key harms that are addressed: lack of generational wealth, stopping gentrification in Black communities, lack of competent financial literacy programs for Black people. Our recommendations overview, I'm actually going to read that we had worked on some recommendations that we had the attorneys vet through for us, and I shared this at our last meeting. One of them is immediately return all urban renewal land that's being held in moratorium by the city of Asheville to be placed aside for reparations. There is some working that we need to do on the language, but we are going to put forward that recommendation as well as explore the acquisition of underutilized and vacant land so that it will be returned in lieu of urban renewal land that was taken from the Black community. Again, there's some language, there's some wordsmithing that we need to do with this language in order to be able to move that. Yes.
Just so y'all know that the supplemental information is on page 25, where you can follow along to the draft recommendations.
Thank you. So again, there's some wordsmithing that needs to be done with regards to these recommendations. And the third one is create a land acquisition program that would acquire at a minimum the amount of acreage that was taken from Black people during urban renewal. So just wanted to kind of bring those forward. There's also some other recommendations that we're working on. We're working on breaking those into buckets. I don't have those in front of me, so I apologize. But the next time that we report out, we will share that information with you. And then going back to the presentation, we looked at recommendations overview, again, displacement of Black homes and neighborhoods due to urban renewal, return of all unused urban renewal land, which I've already spoken to, and I won't read the rest because I think they're already on the handouts. And then when we talk about overlap, again, we say that the housing IFA overlaps with all of the other IFAs. And so we're hoping that once the retreat comes, we'll be able to bring forth some of these recommendations and see how we can kind of parcel these out so that we're not doing double work. And how are we gaining community engagement? So we had an event, I shared this at the last meeting, we had an event on the 15th. We are doing a follow-up event. I have not gotten the date solidified yet, but we're looking at September. So what we plan to do is to go back and meet with community because they give us a lot of great feedback when we had that event, and to let them know, hey, this is what we've done. We heard you, we presented it to the full commission, we've talked to the attorneys, and then this is what we're going to do and any next steps. We want community to know that we're hearing their voices, and we definitely want to get their buy-in. Does anyone from the Housing IFA have anything that they would like to add to what I just shared? Did I miss anything? Are there any questions? All right, you guys are making it easy. Just have that staple button that says, that was easy. Yes.
Again, as you're speaking, please identify for the sake of the audience that's not here. They can't see you. This is Dwight Mullen. It's more of a comment than an inquiry for you, but the Housing and Urban Development, Department of Housing and Urban Development is doing major work right now on countering what happened to Black communities because of urban renewal. And I'm wondering, I didn't mean to place it as a question, but I'm wondering if this is not a time, a way of thinking of leveraging what we're doing with what the feds are doing.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea. I also think maybe putting together in our proposals, so because we've spoken about putting together proposals of what that can look like, and so adding that into one of our proposals, we can definitely talk about that.
Thank you.
And the other thing I wanted to make sure that we brought up, I'll give you in just a second, Tiffany. We talked about, the legacy neighborhoods. I know there's a presentation that's going to be taking place this evening with regards to that. So we're also making sure that we want to make sure that we are including these legacy neighborhoods, and we're reaching out. So that's part of our community engagement, making sure that we're reaching out to these neighborhoods and hearing their voices as well. Tiffany?
Thank you. This is Tiffany Double. My question is around the recommendations overview. You're mentioning return of all unused urban renewal land immediately. So is that, like, has that been covered through legal in terms of, can we see something like this actually happening? Because it is amazing.
Yes. So one of the, Brad, and Fruit, actually we sent that to legal and Brad sent back some information to us. So that's why I said there needs to be some wordsmithing. Brad, I don't know if you would like to add to or kind of share what took place.
Sure, can everybody hear me okay? I will go to the mic if you can. Obviously, this is preliminary in nature in that we give our initial thoughts and considerations, the concerns that we have, but every final sort of recommendation or advice that the county attorney or myself would provide to our relative governing boards would be based on the exact language of the final recommendation. So I know we're still a work in progress, but to this point, what we have said is that, you know, if we're defining what return is, I think some of the language that we've heard is maybe going ahead and setting that land aside that had been acquired by either the city or county through a renewal and dedicating it towards the purposes of reparations without us knowing yet what exactly that would mean. In other words, that kind of an approach as opposed to giving land from the city to county back to an individual or a group of individuals is I think something, the former is something that absolutely is a much easier legal path for us to do. So that's the communications we've had with this group so far.
And my final, is there a longevity plan? So for example, this goal, it's gonna span well after this commission is here. So is there like a longevity plan to make sure or ensure once we maybe, you know, we will disband, how will we see this through? And have y'all had that conversation?
I will say that we've had conversations about what's going to happen afterwards. So I know that we've talked about the possibility of like, is this something that RSAA can hold, right, as we talk about land. We're not sure, right? So we are having the conversations. There's definitely concern about what will happen afterwards and how, you know, and where would that land sit, and then who would make the decisions on what happens with that land. So the conversations are being had. We don't have a concrete plan at this point, but the conversations are being had. Thank you for your questions.
Thank you.
Yes.
Sandu McPeters. I was at your first community engagement meeting, and there was a lot of shared, or I guess a lot of communities shared about education. Do y'all have any components of education as far as whether it's acquiring, purchasing, wealth development plans as far as educating our people in regards to your tactics or recommendations?
Yes, thank you, Asante. Great question. We have been having conversations about what the education piece could look like, and we also want to get with the education IFA to talk about, again, that's part of the overlap. So the conversation that we've been having is, we talk about air property, right, and how to keep property within the family. I mean, educating people on that. Thank you. So we are talking about the education piece. We will put that in a proposal of what that could look like, but we also would like to get with the IFA, the education IFA, to kind of figure out what that could look like and the possibilities. Yes. Any other questions? Yes, MZ.
MZ, Yehuda. Question about the housing recommendations with responses from city and county attorney, page 26. I'm looking at the end of item 2 and the end of item 3. The response from the attorney, I believe, stating that the recipient of the land should not be limited based upon race. How is the city and the county prepared to challenge this based upon this being reparations for Black Asheville?
Right. Great question. I wish I had the answer to that question. That's something that we're taking a deeper dive into. So we received the responses, and Brad, I'll give you an opportunity to share, to comment. We've taken a deeper dive into it, but we haven't come up with what that will look like. So Brad, if you want to comment.
Thank you so much. The answer is we're researching it right now. We're looking into that closer. I can tell you that what we feel most comfortable with is that real estate that's being held by the city or county that came to those entities through urban renewal, for instance, could be dedicated towards reparations efforts. Now, if you want to say that the city land or the county land has to be conveyed in some way, we have a really strict set of state laws that tells us how we're allowed to convey land and under what circumstances we can convey land. And it's heavily, heavily restricted. Now, we can utilize land for certain purposes. So that gives us a lot more authority. So we're researching what avenues we would have to be able to utilize land, even if it's not owned at the end of the day by the city or the county, in a way that fulfills a public purpose as outlined in the statutes. That takes some research. So that's what we're looking into right now, seeing how we would go about fulfilling these recommendations, what options we can give that would keep us clear of the state law limitations. So to be determined.
So my time is up for housing. All right. Now I'm putting my criminal justice hat on. Again, my name is Salama. I am married, and I am the IFA facilitator for the criminal justice IFA. So we meet the second and third Wednesday at the Montfort Community Center. And one of the things that we're addressing with our key harms, and this was shared at our last meeting as well, so I won't really go through this, but I will say that there was a meeting that took place at the end of last month on the third Wednesday, and I have some information from that meeting. And some of the conversation that was had was eliminate racial disparities in the courts, increase the number of Black individuals who participate in the Justice Resource Center's diversion programs. And what they discussed are what are the harms that will be reduced with doing this. Lack of Black people are unrepresented in the programs. Unfair rulings, impractical sentencing, trauma, disproportionate sentencing, disproportionate fines, juvenile criminalization, increased educational and economic development opportunities. I'm looking at better health, increased efforts of students achieving in school, which will help add more Blacks to the workforce in the community, and reduced detention and more individuals getting a college education. So for those of you who are here from the Criminal Justice IFA, if I miss anything, or if I say something that's not correct, please help me with that. Appreciate it. The other is eliminating racial disparities in the courts, develop and implement culturally relevant, community-focused sensitivity training and professional development offered to support Black people. The harms that are being reduced here are the inability to advocate and educate effectively work with Black people, misinformation by court personnel. And they feel that the IFA that this overlaps with is education. The next is Asheville-Buncombe County Pledge of Support to Future Legislative Initiatives, whose goal is to provide underlying stability to the recommendations made by this commission and overall vision of the reparations resolution. There was no specific harms that were being addressed at this time, but the overlap is additional language to support H.R. 40, Commission to Study and Develop Reparation Proposals for African Americans Act, and create tribunal support for legislative, community organizations, etc., that serves as accountability group or commission for future recommendations and implementation initiatives. An additional recommendation is invest in additional practices that increase the safety and reduce the harmful effects of arrest of Black people. What harms are addressed or reduced? Less fines and criminalization. and they're asking for additional language, perpetually fund an independent commission as determined by the Asheville-Buncombe Reparations Commission to sustain, assess, and implement the Reparations Commission's recommendations. Reinvest the use of criminal legal system resources and invest instead in the supportive community-based services for Black youth, women, and men arrested for non-violent low-level offenses. The overlap is not noted here, but additional requests specifically define what community-based services are. Reimagine the Asheville Police Department and Buncombe County Sheriff Department according to the Black community's input and best practices for public safety. It's also a recommendation that we're looking at. And a new recommendation is immediate release of all Black people incarcerated for petty crimes who are being held in the detention center. And I believe that's it. I will add that we are working on a community engagement event for criminal justice as well. We haven't confirmed the date as of yet, but I believe it's going to be sometime in August. And so there are some questions in the survey that we're going to put together with the RJC to go out to community to get their feedback prior to this meeting, this community engagement meeting, so that we can kind of have some feedback and then be prepared when we go out to speak to community. Does anyone have any questions for me with regards to criminal justice?
I have a question.
Yes.
Christine Edwards here. My question is, how is your group sort of prioritizing or categorizing some of your recommendations? In your conversations, do you think that some will rise to the top and really kind of have more people get behind one over the other? Or in terms of the criminal justice IFA, is it we really want to do all, policy, training, policing, all of it? Or is it, are you all having those conversations at this point?
We are. So we've broken them down into buckets. I apologize because I don't have the buckets here with me. If someone with the, okay, MC, do you want to come up and share those buckets? Or you can speak right there. That's fine. If you can share the buckets, they are broken down into buckets, and then we have the recommendations under different buckets. So you can go ahead and say thank you.
Policing reform, state policies, reform courts, training criminal justice professionals, programs, community education, Black representation, school to prison, and then accountability.
Accountability. Okay.
And then I'll make sure that I share that with you, Christine, so you can have that.
I think we have it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
So one thing, I'm a part of that group. Oh, Tawana Little, I'm part of the group too. One thing that we have been doing also to touch base is like in multiple IFAs that I've attended has been talking about like how do you have one without the other? Because in order for this to be truly successful, like prioritizing and hoping they choose what you prioritize is one thing, but submitting it as this is what it's going to take to see some real impact and a real shift and what we're trying to do to really realize, like fully realize what our outcomes for this process is it's going to be all, you know what I mean? And so like I feel like prioritizing, like the term maybe is what's throwing me off, because it's like we need all of these. You can't have school to prison pipeline reform and on the criminal justice side and decriminalize, but the police don't have training that they need to be culturally conscious of who they speaking to. Like you can't, a lot of times you can't have one without the other. Mm-hmm. And so as we continue to work through it, that'll be like, you'll probably go get all of ours. You know what I mean? Because you cannot, a lot of times you cannot have one without the other. So this notion of prioritizing, we want this more is not realistic, because the problem is more than one thing that we're addressing with the recommendations. Across all the IFAs, they addressing like generations and generations of issues. And so I just like to caution the term of prioritizing or saying, oh, we want this, and you don't have to give us this if you give us this, because that's not the reality. It takes all of it most of the time in order to really influence the change that we're striving to pursue at this as a commission.
And to add what Dewana said, we also spoke about creating, developing our proposals and requesting how that could look,
Yeah.
right? So we will be putting together proposals for criminal justice as well to show or to help the city and the county, help us to be able to move this forward. Any other questions, comments? Alrighty, thank you all for your time.
Thank you. Economic development.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I'm Tara Brown. I support the Economic Development IFA, and you're going to hear from two of our members tonight, Kim Jones and Dee Williams, and of course anyone else who's in the group or anyone else in this district who wants to participate and give feedback. I do want to say I think that you all have our draft recommendations in your packet. So Kim and Dee are going to talk about two of them, but I do want to note Dr. Mullins' point in the beginning about direct payments. We do have a line, not a fully flushed proposal, but a line about direct payments, potentially a guaranteed income program, which is something that has been piloted in 100 cities at least, including Durham. So we know that there's some legal precedent for it in the state of North Carolina. So I know our group is very eager to think through that, and happy to have any input on that recommendation and any other recommendations as well. But tonight, you're going to hear from Kim Jones and Dee on two recommendations. So Kim is going to talk about an economic development center for Black Asheville. This is on this slide. Look at that. Okay, and I'll do a picture.
Good evening. I am going to read from the first economic development page. Our meetings are the first Thursday of each month at 6 p.m. at the Burton Street Community Center. Our members are Dwayne Barton, Dwayne Richardson, Dee Williams, Bernard Oliphant, Linda McDowell, and Renetta Waters. So our proposal is a economic development center for Black Asheville. The key harms addressed: multiple successful Black communities have been destroyed and are taken to urban renewal, racial wealth gap, racial disparities in business ownership, disparities in economic development, and investment from the city and county. Our proposal overview, we were very excited at our last meeting to discuss this, is to create an economic development center for small business development, workforce development, financial literacy, and accessing financial resources. This center would be for us, by us, and to meet people where they are. Housed in the executive office building with centralized services that provide holistic support. We also talked about to build on and utilize land taken during urban renewal, intake assessments to see where people are and to support with resources, connect people with grants, technical assistance, training, incubator space. Important to include childcare, land for farmers. In the building, we would like to have realtors, lawyers, Black-owned financial institutions, and a connection to other IFAs for holistic solutions. So with the Economic Development Center, what was exciting about it was the vision, as we were talking, was like this one-stop shop that would house each of the 5 IFAs in it, where people can come and we can meet them where they are, hopefully take care as many of their, hopefully support them in whatever it is that they feel like their need. And we have all heard from different people about what it is that they're missing in Asheville, what we would like to see. And so we want to get all of that information, and we want to invite all of the different IFA groups to come and meet with us so that we can work more on this plan. So it was really exciting, and we're all looking forward to meeting with the other IFA groups. The services will incorporate all other IFAs with economic development, and we will be discussing this proposal at the next IFA meeting on Thursday, July 6th. So we hope that all commission members and the public are invited to come and to give input. And then I'll pass it over to Dee.
Thank you, everyone. Just a pleasure to be here and just to talk about some of the tangibles. Are there copies of the pro formas?
Yeah.
Y'all have, that you came up with? The reason why we did, these are a number that came as a result of the 6 legacy black neighborhoods, and some of them have been more intentional and intensive about their planning than others. But these plans had lain fallow for over 10 years. And specifically, we looked at some of the cost data that was given to us, and Dwayne Barton and Burton Street had probably gone a little bit farther than others in terms of talking about a small business incubator. The other neighborhoods, one of the things that I did do was look at the fact was to cost out a per square footage cost of maybe placing that incubator over at Burton Street in the basement of that facility. One of the things that which I guess I operate from, is tangibility and bottom line budgets. This is a proposal. This is not just talk. And so as we come to a close, it looks like we need to do more walking than talking, or at least do the walking at the same time we talk. And most people who are business people function with budgets and proposals. And so it looks like what we've done is we've not only costed out the incubator for Burton Street, but we've also costed out the approximate plenary or planning costs for each of the 6 black legacy neighborhoods. Even though a lot of them are gentrified and gone, we feel like those planning dollars, which are $92,000 per neighborhood, could take care of hiring consultants or whoever to come in to find out exactly what y'all would want to do. The other costs that are accumulated are what we call brick and mortar costs, and those are about, altogether, about $1.7 million. If you've got the sheets, you'll see the top sheet with the 6 black neighborhoods. They run about $552,000. That's $92,000 each for planning. And also, that's pretty much what that is. But then also we've included the construction costs for Burton Street at about $1.2 million, along with some operating costs. So if you've got neighborhoods like Chestnut Hills, which are pretty much dissipated, I was raised in that neighborhood, and pretty much it's become almost all gentrified. If they would want to get together and use that money to donate it over to another neighborhood, that would be up to you. If you would want to use it to plan some other things that are ancillary, you could. But at least we've given you starting points. And one of the things that I think we need to know is that we do have enough talent in this group to be able to develop pro formas and budgets around what we want to do. Do we have any questions? Or do you have any questions for me? If not, you can write them down. I'm happy to explain them. It may not be enough money, but one thing about budgets is you've got to start somewhere. And bricks and mortar are a perfect place if you're going to build an incubator. Incubators, as we know, are not SBTDCs, are not small business centers. They're used to train people and then move them out into the private sector. I believe what we were talking about is a minority business development center, which is a well-proven concept. And but I did want to put this in a tangible form. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
As you're making your plans for the incubators, are you taking in your budget, your considerations for like startup restaurants that are starting up? Because if you're talking about a basement, there are a lot of restrictions on incubators and restaurant
Let
startups.
me put it this way, since I own a few restaurants.
Okay,
You don't start a restaurant off in the basement, and it certainly don't belong in a business incubator.
that's
Where
right.
you've got something like at Inca campus, where you would have a facility to where they can come in and maybe prepare some things,
Mhm.
wrap sandwiches perhaps, or do it in another location, but certainly a business incubator is not a fitting space for a restaurant. It is mostly education, it is mostly simulation. It is not an actual space. What you're talking about is probably something like a business hub.
Yeah, business incubator, a business incubator. So if you, when we look around our communities of our black people, most of the businesses are restaurants. That's what they're trying to start. A lot of them are restaurants. And so I want to make sure that when you're looking at basements, you are looking at, something similar to where you can put in some hoods and all that.
It wouldn't be in a basement. I've owned enough of them to know that you
Okay.
don't put a restaurant in a basement.
Okay.
And this incubator is not a hub. That is a concept that would be used somewhere else,
Okay.
maybe simulation or whatever.
Okay, okay.
Thanks. Thanks for your question.
Y'all can still keep going.
Are there any more questions for this group? So we move into our follow-up discussion, and we have 10 minutes for any other discussions with the collective representation. So if y'all have any more questions or things y'all would like to discuss about what you've seen from our updates, now is the time.
I have a question.
Yes.
I guess this question, again, this is Tiffany Devereaux. This goes to both IFAs that presented. So I love the budget. I appreciate that. What's the difference between what the housing, I believe, development is speaking in terms of getting back the land and then refurbishing or revitalizing these current parks and rec buildings or community centers?
I would like to address that. This is Dee Williams. One of the things that I look at is not only urban renewal land, but all city-owned land. It would be a fitting place to locate a small business incubator, as is the Burton Street Center. But there are other underutilized city buildings that would also adequately fit. And that is why we're preparing to give or hopefully have enough money where the various 6 neighborhoods could come in with their ideas and create whatever they would want to be. Perhaps they see a building they want that the city has that they might want to put an enterprise in. That is what we do. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yes.
Sandu and Peters, I just want to say that love the idea of the hub. The education IFA actually have a similar recommendation that we've got brewing. So a lot of us were smiling when we saw you present that. So I think that just as a model for recommendations is that all IFAs should look to have something of a hub as a part of a recommendation. I think that that's something that's feasible. It gives back and it links everything that we're trying to do together so that, our people can come and eat and get fed without having to go all across from where they are. So I think this is a good model for something special, and so I'm glad to see that another IFA is on board with the thinking cap like others are. So just wanted to share that.
Brother.
You just need to speak up.
Oh.
Hard to hear.
Okay.
Okay. Thank y'all for your.
This is Dwight Mullen. The Economic Development Center is really on it. I'd like to add one component in that once it's established that its operating budgets, its maintenance, its physicality becomes part of the annual appropriations of the city and the county as a joint effort. Our community does not have the resources necessary to sustain many institutions without joint supports from the city and from the county. But if we put it up, we should be able to guarantee its continuation through public meetings.
I'm so sorry, I meant to interject. One of the things, I'm glad the city manager's sitting here, because we talked about community benefits. And that is something the city has taken up on our behalf. But one of the things that we probably need to do is become more adept at negotiating for ourselves. Because once we identify our hubs, we can do like LA and Detroit did. When hoteliers come in and develop, we can negotiate for money for our own hubs. So let's not forget about our community benefits agreement, please. Thank you.
This is Tiffany, my final question. This is to the entire Reparations Commission. Do we, or have your IFAs been talking about like a contingency plan for if in case our recommendations are shot down, we have a plan B or we know which way to go so that we're not stifling our movement? And you can answer that or we can, unpack it later, but.
We need to create at least an area institution, a foundation, or whatever. I mean, it's up to y'all how you want to do that. A vessel that will hold that, if you will. A community development corporation, don't know if that's appropriate, but whatever. You do need to do that. And then with that entity in place, and the thought process intact and everything cogent, I don't see a reason why this would not be brought to fruition. I do not see that because we need it. Let us not start talking about being defeated. Let us not do that. Let us talk about putting together the proposals, the budgets, and getting this process underway.
I think too that they're supposed to be.
What's your name? Oh, you gotta say your name.
My name is Dwayne Barton.
Speak up.
My name is Dwayne Barton, and I think too we should have people focusing on certain aspects of this. Like some people check the harm, some lay the landscape, and some implement and sustain. I keep saying that, but we're not moving towards that. So we don't have everybody in a traffic jam on one subject. This is a big deal. We have enough talent in the room to make this hustle real.
Yes, sir.
So I think we need to do that, and we need to hopefully at this retreat we can organize ourselves accordingly based on our skill set and what we bring into this table.
Yes, sir.
MZ Yehuda, I just wanted to kind of lift up again, kind of going back to the opening remarks by our chair about us defining what reparations are. And, if you're a body that's agreed to give recommendations, to give reparations, you don't define what reparations are. You allow the people that are part of the commission, part of the community, to actually define that. So the restrictions that may be in place are not something that I don't think we as commissioners should actually abide by. We have to actually define what it is that we want in order to repair the harm that has been done to us. And leave it to the attorneys to kind of figure out what the challenges are after that. But I think we have to lift up the things that we need in order to repair the harm so that we all, black folks and the rest of the folks in the world, could actually improve our relationships and move forward.
We're doing pretty good on time. We're at 6:50. We're scheduled to move to old business. Do you want to see if there's any other comments?
Yeah. Is there any more comments?
Yeah, I'd like to make a comment.
Yes, sir.
Dwayne McAfee. The chair started out our meeting talking about we should not be taking anything off the table. And I especially appreciate that because that's been one of the things I've been harping on. We have our own personal opinions about reparations, but when it comes to the committee, I would like and hope that we can start talking with one voice. So anyone that has suggested that cash should not be on the table, I have disagreed with immediately. There is nothing that should be off of the table. We have been shackled and in bondage throughout our history. Let's not shackle ourselves right now. Let's be bold, let's think bold, and let's stop asking for stuff and start demanding. I hate this asking. I'm not asking for anything. I'm demanding that there's a change. I'm demanding that there's accountability. We need a hub. I so appreciate different groups talking about a building, a community, I don't care what we call it, but there needs to be a place where we can all get information under one roof. It should have already been done. And that's where overlap needs to take place on all of the IFAs. Every IFA, we want overlap in this area, we want a space. We want it immediately, if not yesterday. Please, people. Thank you.
Any more comments?
I have one, please.
Yes, sir.
Bernard Oliphant. It has been said or alluded to in several different ways. A reparations committee management structure, and a better place to put that management structure is inside this one-stop hub. We need a management structure that can kind of oversee, and you might not like the word prioritization, but at some point you gotta pick and choose what's important right now and move it out. You can't do everything at one time. Some things we're gonna have to do in steps and set milestones. And that management structure can help us prioritize, set milestones, and help us move forward. And as Mr. McAfee said, we need that hub immediately, or that management structure needs to be established and set up within that hub, which would bring in every IFA immediately.
That's right.
Any more comments?
I wanted to make a suggestion and just see what the chair and vice chair think about this with the agenda. We have our old business schedule up next, but I want to make sure that there's sufficient time to talk about the agenda topics for the retreat. So I was wondering if we could move item A up and hear from our speakers for 5 minutes and then go back to old business.
Are you talking about the new business?
Yeah,
first? Okay.
I'm sorry. Item A, the Arteria Collective.
Yes, that's fine.
Okay, cool. So we're gonna move to item A under new business, which is the Arteria Collective, and I think we have a number of speakers here and youths, and I want to go ahead and introduce them. If you're ready. And do they have a presentation? They do. Okay, all right. There we are.
Let's give it up.
Yeah.
All right, hi everyone, how are you doing today?
Hello.
Good. All right, so I know that I am missing another member who is stuck in traffic, so if she walks through, we're just gonna all clap for her. Just kidding, we won't do that. But I am Elizabeth Garland, and I am the project manager for Arteria Collective with the youth documentation team that's standing behind me. I am really excited because I think it's just important to center youth in the conversation, especially if we're talking about reparations in the next generation. So I'm wondering if there is a clicker. Oh, just kidding. There you go. All right. I'm gonna let you be my. Right, and so with that, I think when we talk about the why, right? Why are we doing this? It's the intergenerational dialogue that we should be having. It's the building and shaping stories. It's also celebrating our similarities and then also our differences, and then providing and empowering young people. So I'm gonna step back and let some of our young people talk about their experience on what they've been doing. And so I know I would love to invite E to come up to the, would you like to share?
Hi guys, sorry I came in a little late. So I'm a part of the, we call it Asheville's Youth Reparations documentation team. And what I do, a part of that, is I interview and I guess you could say take notes on different people that are, I would say, prominent and prevalent within the Black Asheville community and Asheville community in general. Just to give an insight and see about their views and what they think about how we can distribute Asheville reparations and what can we do and what part of Asheville can we put it in. Like for example, like maybe for like mental health or education or housing, like things like that. One person I know I did interview was Dr. Dwight Mullen. And how his point of view, his perspective on, you know, what goes on within how he conducts and work these meetings and how he feels like over the next few years what will Asheville be and how can we distribute these reparations. So that is what I do. Thank you.
All right.
Good afternoon.
My name is Niles Clark, and everything you just heard E say, I'm the one with the camera behind it and filming everything. I also attend events, and I take pictures with my camera. But yeah, I'm the camera behind everything. I'm alongside these lovely people here, meeting everybody in the community, hearing everyone's perspectives. And I don't necessarily understand everything that's going on right now, but bit by bit, I'm kind of getting the hang of everything, you know?
Good for you.
Hello everyone, my name is Imani Bellamy, and I just want to put a little quote in our slide today. It says, "History gives answers only to those who know how to ask questions," and we really want to emphasize asking questions, especially when we do not know the answer, and the importance of knowing our history, and so that we don't repeat the same mistakes that past people in our lives have already made. Thank you.
All right.
So now we're gonna play a brief snippet, I think.
And I'm a part of the Asheville Reparations documentation team. And I am here with Dr. Dwight. So you think if we were not more of a capitalist society, you would think that it would be easier for the black community to
Alrighty.
redeem itself
Alrighty.
from poverty?
Actually, it's the kind of capitalism I see benefiting the top 1%. That's what I want for the 99%, of which we are part. You see, one of the things I've experienced is that wealthy people don't worry about life. They don't worry about eating, living inside. They don't worry about the health care. When they need something, it's available. If that's possible, then it's possible, and let's do that. You know, and what I do, you know, I'm doing taxes, right? And I'm looking at people who are paying no taxes. You know what I'm saying? That we can have an economic model that people are like living the life and paying no taxes. Why can't we have an economic model that at least meets basic needs that create a humane society and translate that into ways that are viable through our institutions? And I think it's inevitable. Is if as long as it's not happening, we're going to have instability. You know, and as long as we have instability, it's going to cut into profit margins until they figure out how to make a profit off the instability, and that's the problem.
Yeah. So would you flip that? Would you like the wealthy, the upper class, pay taxes, and maybe the middle class, but lower class, or like middle class, workers class basically don't pay taxes?
See, we experimented with that, and it started working, we backed off. After World War II, we had a huge.
Hi everybody, my name is Eden Mosley, and I'm a part of the Asheville. Hi everybody, my name is Eden Mosley, and I'm a part of the Asheville.
So as we, okay, did I pause it?
Oh, okay. So if we could take it back to the entire slideshow, whoever is. Thank you. Yay, Logan. All right, so the full video will be available to see, and it is something that is absolutely amazing. I do want to kind of bring some of our young people up again and see like what they think in terms of changes that they want to see in their community.
My name is Imani Bellamy, and mostly I just want to see more affordable health care for our youth, especially when it comes to our Black students. I wish there was more programs for Black athletes as well, especially our women athletes, to get the kind of the help that they need to go further in their athletic careers, but also they need like for their bodies as well, not only nourishment, but also what they can do in terms of physical therapy to make sure that they go the long run, they go the distance, and we get to see them at the Olympics. Being someone who wants to go into physical therapy to cater to Black female athletes and also Black pregnant women, I would love if there was like more resources that were accessible and affordable that our high school students and maybe middle school students could also get into and using, that their parents know of, and things like that. Thank you.
Hi, I don't think I mentioned my name the first time. My name is Eden Mosley, and even I would like to see a lot of change. There is some like food insecurities, like having especially lower class Black communities being able to eat healthy and not conventional foods. It costs a lot to be able to eat healthy, and so usually within those areas, it's a lot of unhealthy food choices. And so letting it be able to make those foods affordable, because everybody deserves to live a long, healthy life, not just the people that can afford and attain or be able to obtain those foods. Also, mental health. I would like to see more, I guess, distribution with like therapists and social work within the Black community. You know, generational trauma really does take a toll on our mental health, and even though sometimes you may not see it, things you do within your life can come from or contribute from generational trauma and you might not know. And also, like what Imani said, with healthcare, especially maternal health, the stillbirth rate amongst Black women has went up Now it is 5 times more likely than their white counterparts, and also the black woman mortality rate when giving birth has also went up from 3% to 3.5% times more likely to die during childbirth. So I would like to see more adequate healthcare and resources distributed. That's what I would like to see change within the community. Thank you.
I'm Miles Clark. I'd like to see something to do with the school systems. Because right now, my father works in school systems, and he always talks about how the more troubled kids, they don't really have anywhere to go sometimes. And he feels that the school doesn't necessarily give them the tools to help those children through it, or kind of support them in any way, rather than just send them to detention or send them home, and not really giving the support they need.
Alright, so I can't take any credit for this presentation, and I also do want to have some amazing shout outs. So I've got London behind me, who is our photojournalist for today. We've got Dante over here with the camera. And then also these great dialogue questions Imani Bellamy came up with, and it's And so I'm going to leave this here. In what ways can we start making space for young adults to have a voice, specifically around the reparations conversation? And so that's part of what our documentation team is doing, but also thinking at larger capacity. And then also questions to think on a day-to-day. In what ways do I make space for students or young people to have a voice that is heard? So I'm gonna leave that there. And also if anyone has any questions, especially not for me. Any questions?
Tiffany Deblo here again. Great job, everyone. Thank you. My question is around, I know that your voice is being heard because you're a part of this project, but as you're in your day-to-day routine in school, have you been having more conversation with your peers around reparations? Have they asked you about what you're doing in terms of this particular project?
That is a very good question. See, I go to a PWI. I go to Carolina Day School. It is a private, predominantly white institution. So these conversations I do have, it is not easy, but we do have these conversations because my school does, I can say, is progressive and does allow these conversations to happen, though it is not easy because we are around some conservative that don't like critical race theory, that don't want these conversations or don't want to be taught, but it must be taught. And because it's history that should not be swept under the rug, because Black history, and especially African American history, is American history because it happened on American soil, so therefore it should be taught. So I can't say yes, I do talk to my peers about it. I am a school community leader that do hold these conversations, so I can't say yes, I do. But it is not easy given that I am only one of few at a predominantly white institution.
Excellent, thank you.
Hello. One thing that I usually talk about from my perspective is the Racial Equity Ambassadors Program, where you focus on integrating more culture into our school curriculum and having teachers make sure they talk about different cultures within our school and it being taught and not just talking about white culture and what the white man wants us to know about history. And so one thing that we talk about day to day is like how can teachers teach teachers how to be more racially aware and to not just kind of sugarcoat things and not be around the bush anymore, but to actually like have those tough conversations. And it's been hard because what are you going to talk about in math class? But you can still talk about the different mathematicians that are around and things like that. So thank you.
Imani, that's what Asheville City Schools Foundation?
Yes.
Oh, okay, thank you. you, everyone.
Thank you.
For your, if you're keeping on the agenda, technically, we should be going to be under Roman numeral 6, retreat agenda topics, but if you don't mind, I'd like to collect your cards and go directly to new business offering B, and hear from the legacy communities, the legacy neighborhoods. If you have items you would like to see on the retreat agenda, would you please use the index cards and write them up and send them around to me. But for purposes of giving enough time for presentation and then the round table of commissioners, I'd like to go to B and hear from the legacy community.
Awesome, thank you. So as you can see, we have several legacy neighborhoods, but just for today, we are just going to hear from one of the legacy neighborhoods, and then we're hoping that in future meetings, we're going to invite more to come in and speak on these questions. And it's an informal presentation, but we're hoping to hear about what planning efforts are underway in your neighborhood or community. What stories do you believe need to be told? Share the vision of what your neighborhood would look like with reparative justice, and let us know what specific harms should be addressed, and just share those stories. And of course, we have Dwayne Barton representing Burton Street.
Good evening. And the current planning efforts that's underway in the Burton Street community is the Burton Street neighborhood plan. We are trying to work with DOT to get maximum benefit for a plan we created around 2010. And that process has been a little challenging. It's been it's been a little challenging to get support from institutions and other organizations to add some additional capacity to what the community laid out about what they would like to see for their neighborhood. This is a pretty massive project that's going to affect not only Burton Street but Hillcrest, and even around Pisgah View. And we was just hoping that we could get a little bit more support around getting maximum benefit for this highway expansion. This being the third time that a highway project like this is coming through our neighborhood. And even though we've been designated as an environmental justice community, we, in my opinion, haven't seen that rush of support that we would like. Another planning thing that's going on is our neighborhood is flipping. It's a lot of new people coming in, and when you ask them about, and they're very happy to be in the community. So what we try to do is map the neighborhood and get those new individuals in the community to understand where they moved to and understand what the past and future challenges are and what is their time, talent, and treasure that they can give to help support the community to make the goals real in the neighborhood. Something else is going on in our neighborhood. It's like we're trying to plan, the city is planning on redeveloping the Burton Street, the outside of the Burton Street Community Center. And what we're trying to do is position young people and adults who live in that community to rebuild and be the ones that's hired to do that work. A lot of times we remember when our structures in our neighborhoods have been torn down, and I think now is the time that we can plug in our young people and adults to help rebuild those spaces. So we're trying to work with Wall and the guy over the city department to try to figure out, okay, how do we make this real? Now, the real reason we're trying to do this is because we want to create a blueprint that we can replicate in other communities. It's just not just for Burton Street, it's for the entire city. But one community has to take the lead to show everybody what it could look like. Another thing that's happening in our neighborhood is like, what up here, I got all these plans and I showed it
E.W. Pearson Center of Innovation. We went through and even put some numbers up on this one, and we had 4.5 million. We wanted when we planned this out, and I appreciate the other numbers that was put out there. This is another plan that we created for the neighborhood. This was in 2011 about putting a technology center in the basement. We didn't run the numbers with this, but it's another plan the neighborhood created, you know, motivated to do something to improve itself, and that's 2011. Another one we did was this African American infrastructure and facilities projects. And this, I see on an earlier slide with the numbers, they talked about hiring a consultant. But we know that there's a lot of consultants in the neighborhood that just be overlooked and not valued. So in this one, we put some more numbers on this one, like how do we get people from the neighborhood to, you know, put money in their hands to be the ones who help rebuild their community. This is another one we did. I think this is around 2017 too. This is one we did where we broke down the numbers too. We broke down the numbers for a comprehensive plan for youth, adults, consultants, and they would, you know, so it's broken out. So you run the first pilot in the neighborhood who can align all these people from the neighborhood, and then you would replicate it in Shiloh and even the other housing communities. So that last question I want to say is, you said, what can the community, restorative justice?
Yeah.
Restorative justice is, if we jumping through all these hoops, y'all know how hard it is to get an African American community to come together and create plans for itself when it's historically been crushed and smashed. This is an amazing amount of work that was done that's been ignored for over 10 to 15 years. Now, if this is reparations in the sky, drop the bag. The last thing I want to say is that we've been waiting. Like I said, this is we've been waiting for a long time. Now, we talk about the business incubator over at Burton Street, but the city is on the hook for building and restoring the infrastructure at the Burton Street Community Center based on the highway expansion. That's in the plan. They are obligated to check off the box to do the revitalization of the Burton Street Community Center. But because we've been waiting so long to make it real, we decided that we would go ahead and, like our communities have always did. Our communities didn't wait for somebody to come and help them do it. Jim Crow segregation didn't allow them to do it. It was legally okay to say no to the black community every day, all day. They got no love, but it didn't stop them from building. So we're not waiting, and we're trying to build. We're building a business incubator on Burton Street that's directly tied to the highway expansion. And that's what's so blowing my mind, because I know how much work and effort it takes to do something like this, that I don't see no momentum coming our way. And we've been able to raise $1.5 million and more money on the way. But the local institutions and organizations are still moving in slow motion. And I don't understand. Now, some other things that's going on. We have another disparity study. We got this Land of Sky trying to get $500,000 for African American cemeteries. How do we leverage all this motion, like you talked about her? How do we leverage all these activities and bring us under one umbrella and make the hustle real? Okay, thank you.
So we are now about to have go back to old business, the audit RFP update.
Yes, so This is going to be a very quick update. The audit RFP has closed. It closed on June 8th, and Buncombe County has received proposals from vendors. And now we are going to be starting the evaluation and selection process. And I'm looking at Buncombe County over here just to kind of confirm that's it really as much as we can share at this point. We've received proposals. The RFP is still on track to be, the auditor is still on track to be approved and selected by, I want to say July 3rd or the week of July 3rd. And there are several members of the commission that are on the selection committee. So that is already built in. And stay tuned. I think that's as much as we can share.
All right, old business, B, retreat agenda topics. Oh, we're doing it.
There are topics, suggested topics are on page 30, which is in the back of your packet. And again, these are suggested topics because we wanted to make sure that we're not missing anything, but we wanted to just provide some suggestions to start the conversation. And also for the retreat, the date has been confirmed for Saturday, July 29th. The time, we're looking at 10 a.m. to 3. It could change if we need it to, but we're looking at 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. And we're looking at the space is this room. So it's going to be here at the Harris Center for the retreat. So I don't know if you want to go through some of these topics, or how would you want to just hear from folks? Okay.
So I would like to open it up for comments. Are there any comments on the potential agenda topics and flow of the retreat agenda? Yes, Mr. McAfee.
Dwayne McAfee. I just read down here and I started to list these by number. And when you get to the big picture, define reparations, I put that number 1. And number 2, suggested objectives, discuss shared goals and the purpose of the retreat. I think if we can handle these 2 items, we would really be doing ourselves as a body a benefit, and that would help us be more purposeful as we move forward.
Any more comments, Tiffany?
Tiffany Devereaux here again. Just in terms of the time, 10 to 3, is there a possibility to make it a little earlier? That is the last Saturday where we host Black Love, and I mean, I know it's not just about me and what's going on, but if I can just ask that we end maybe at 2 instead of 3? Would that push us to have to go to 9? And would that be too much?
So that's not too early.
Okay.
Like for me, I think I'll be having to get my kids situated, and so that's a different time thing. So now would be too early for me, but I'm not sure. I will move however the commission would like to move on the time. It doesn't, like, I will make adjustments if I need to.
Tiffany, we're going to meet on Wednesday to discuss some of the details of the retreat. So let's work that time out, and we'll keep in mind the 10 to 2 time frame.
I'll make note of it.
Thank you. And I have one more item. So under governance and next steps, the second bullet, discuss and prioritize remaining project timeline. Is there any room to make a suggestion that we extend this project?
Yes, you can make us just as you want. Feel free to.
With consideration of the chair and vice chair, the commitment that you've already put in.
I'll make a recommendation.
Thank you.
Yes, Ms. Harrison?
Joyce Harrison. Is there any time for any breakout sessions for different groups to meet individually? Say, housing meet with education, health and wellness meet with education, different groups, because the education part is a big piece of this reparations. So at some point, all of the IFA groups needs to be talking to education about what we need to do. Is there a time for breakout sessions?
Yes, we can definitely schedule that in.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more? Yes, sir.
Bernard Oliphant, under the big picture, can we also try to cover compensation for those harmed?
Yes, sir. Yes, Mr. Harris.
Was there some information on the facilitator?
It was a link in the email. It's a
Okay.
link that connects to her profile of her.
Okay, thank you.
I could give you some context on that. If you go to traumainformedinstitute.com, you'll be able to read about her organization. And the reason that we're looking at this facilitator is because she has a lot of experience in leading groups through sort of grounding and collaboration, especially that groups that are impacted by trauma. And I think that from what I'm hearing, that is one of the elements that has been missing from this process, this idea of healing and talking amongst one another about healing and how that happens. So that is why we recommended this facilitator as somebody that could be a good option.
Asheville has been known
did you ever come
to
in?
eat facilitators alive.
I'm sorry?
So Asheville has been known to eat facilitators up.
I'll tell her.
So we're good at
pass
it.
it
We're
along.
good at it.
I think we have some good facilitators amongst our IFA.
Yeah, we can.
Yeah, for sure.
So I don't know if any are available.
For sure.
Any recommendations? You're right
Oh,
there.
yeah, I have a recommendation for Dr. Lavender, if that's possible. I think she's done a great job with the education IFA, and I think that the commission can benefit from utilizing her expertise in moving this thing forward.
Heard.
Yeah. It may also be beneficial to have someone that's already dealt with us, is familiar with us. Some of us can be quite difficult.
We got a mirror over
You know, while you all are contemplating with the retreat and the formation, the topics and all, I have a suggestion that I personally would appreciate. I think so many of you who have deep Asheville roots, you take it for granted that we know who you're talking about. And one of the issues of urban renewal that we're confronting is that if we're talking about property, just as one example, we can go into the other IFAs too, it would help to know the people who were actually displaced, the names of the people who are actually displaced.
That's true.
It's personal, but it's also important in terms of how do we give it back and we don't know who you are. But also, these people may not be around anymore, or they may not have heirs. And then we need to talk about the nature of the community to whom that land should be given back. If you could periodically, a name come to you, jot it down, send it to us, that would be really good as we accumulate. That information is just not available. So we ran into it in a number of circumstances that we couldn't trace the families. We don't know what happened to them. We don't know where they are. So.
Let me give you an example. Where the Martin Luther King statue is in the park, there was a house there. And that house was there, and there was an older couple.
Louder, please.
There was an older couple that lived in that house there. And when urban renewal came through, they couldn't keep it up. And so they ended up, I think, going over to Klondike. And they finished their life in Klondike. I don't think any of their descendants are in Asheville anymore. So like you said, when it gets to that, it's like, okay, here's a family, was affected. None of them live here anymore. But they were greatly affected by what had happened to them, because after a while, you don't have anything to come back to. It is almost like you sell grandmother's house, or grandma's house. Sometimes that will break up the whole family, and you don't have anything to come back to. So I think that's one project we should take on. I think UNC has already done some studies on that. Homes that are no longer, that were there, but they are no longer even physically, anything could tell you that it was a house here. And UNC has already.
Yeah, go ahead. I just wanted to say that those of us that have, my name is Bobette Mays.
Thank you.
Nobody sounds like me. What I want to say is there are those of us in this room that were raised up during that era. So we know the harm. We felt the harm. If those are the stories that you would like to hear, I think that would be something that during the retreat that you might want to hear. And as I look back of being raised in Stumptown, we can't get Stumptown back. But we can't keep talking about what used to be. We got to, that's what's holding us back. We got to start talking about what we're going to do going forward. Because we can't replace all of that. I can tell you the names of people in Stumptown where my street is still there, but the people over from me that lost all, I can tell you their names because we were all like this. So I know where they are. I know who they are. I know what happened to them. And all of them that I know had to end up going to Hillcrest. That's where they went. And other people know. We got people over in Bartlett Arms that lost their homes in Southside. The generations that could not do any better that are still in that. So if we're going to talk about that, that would be something that we could really talk about at the retreat, so you all that don't know that experience, don't know how we felt, because we're still dealing with the harm. Yeah. We're still living the harm, believe me. Everything from education, economic development, housing, health, disparities, all of that, we're living that now. And I always say we probably have PTSD from what we experienced. So those stories would be poignant and important, I think. They are.
NZ?
Okay, I had a couple of points. As part of the agenda for the retreat, if we could not forget about Black people that were former residents of Asheville or Buncombe County, maybe forced out because of harms. Maybe that's something we consider when we're having discussions. And then I just wanted to kind of ask a question about, I'm seeing this sign up going around for this reparations conversations. Can I hear some more about what that is?
Yes.
And then another question,
Oh, yeah.
Are there other dates that we can consider for that, not just Saturdays?
I think that's a good question, MZ. So that is a paper version of the sign up that I sent out over email. Dr. Mullen has offered to host small group informal conversations at Berry Temple, and those were a couple of the dates that were offered. If there are any other dates, I will definitely coordinate and put it together for y'all.
MZ, the idea behind it was that we can discuss things without a quorum in a much more frank and holistic sense. And if we can do it as a precursor to the retreat, good. If we need to do it as a follow-up to the retreat, that's fine too. But I thought that it might do us well to be able to talk to each other in a family-style way. In one of our former citizens of the community, Berry Temple. Catherine Mitchell has been very generous with using this space and has offered it to us.
Might I also offer, if you want to do virtual, then I could create a virtual option just to kind of open the room And again, if we have a small enough group, then I would be happy to host it in partnership with Dr. Mullen. So y'all just let me know.
My concern is just not making quorum. That I don't want to do a quorum. In the public meeting, things kick in.
So there would be no non-commission members present?
Yep, no non-commission members present. So please sign up on the sheet. I think this conversation is definitely going to be fruitful, to be able to have open conversation.
So you can look at other dates besides the two that's on the sheet?
Yeah, we'll send out
Okay.
some more dates.
Okay.
Y'all can make recommendation on what days are better. We was trying to do like during the day, have one during the day, one later in the day or on the weekend. And so we're trying to do that balance to give people options. But please let us know what works best for y'all. All right, without any more questions, we're going to move into the roundtable check-in with commission members. And so,
Before you do that, I just make a quick comment. I forget the young people's name in the organizer. My name is Dwayne McAfee. One thing is we're talking about making sure that we can identify through urban renewal families that were displaced. At one of our first meetings, I suggested that we needed to talk to the 95-year-olds. And it seems like to me we have a wonderful organization sitting right here. We should figure out a way to empower them to go out into the community and talk to the elders of our community. If we really want to start getting some names, let's use these people. Who would be better to have the names than the elders of the community? 90, 95 older, we need to talk to them. They're going to be able to tell us the family members in Stumptown, East End, because they're going to remember them. We should make sure that somehow we figure out a way to bring these two entities together. Please.
thank you.
And you all know that I'm not a very sentimental kind of person. You know, the reason why I went these names is because we then have the basis of personal injury approaches to this. You see, I mean, we can emote all we want, but if we have the people who are actually harmed, we're talking about some serious approaches to correcting those harms.
If we can't find that family, we can do something else with that money. We can create a community resource. We can do a number of things with that.
And you don't have to talk to 95-year-olds. I can tell you everybody lives on my street. I can tell you everybody lives on my street, on South Side. I can tell you everybody on Walton Street. I can go all around the neighborhood and tell you the names of the people that lived in what houses all around. I mean, if you start at 70-year-olds, which I'm not even gonna tell you my age. If you start at 70 years old, you will get all the names of what you're looking for. You get people in their 95s, they will not remember all the people that are around you. I mean, because it was so many, and so many people moved in and out. People moved out of neighborhoods, moved around in the neighborhood. People moved out of the state, they're just everywhere. If you were born and raised in Asheville, you know just about everybody, every family. I don't care if they lived in Stumptown. I don't care if they lived in Shiloh. You know people in Asheville. So if you're asking for names of people, if you look around this table at people that were born and raised here, you will get some answers. It's not hard. It's not hard. You just have to ask.
See, the same thing happened to us at the end of enslavement. Everybody knew everybody.
Yes.
They died. Now we don't know anyone.
Exactly.
You see? So we have to record this.
So we're going to get to our check-in. We're going to make this a quick round. And we'll start with MZ and work our way this way.
I was really happy to hear the youth, hear about the youth project. They should be really involved in this as it's going on. And I think it's a great opportunity really to do interviews of people in the community to really learn that aspect that some of you said we don't know too much about yet. So that's a great way of learning, is just to do interviews, just to hear, and you might find yourself in that story. So I was inspired to hear that, see the work that's been done. It's great work. Keep up the great work. And commission members, great work too.
Laurie? I have some comments here about the retreat, and one concern I have is that there's too many topics in the draft retreat agenda, and I want us to focus more to get things done. And I think it's really important that we work through at least one recommendation in detail with budget, with numbers, with connections to harms, and that could support the details and the other recommendations that need to come out from the different IFAs. I feel like many of us are aware of some of the harms at least, and the details are really important too. And so I want us to go through that and be able to present some fleshed out recommendation proposals soon.
I kind of feel the same. I like that we're kind of getting to the point where we're realizing where all of them cross over, and that we need to focus on where all the IFAs cross over and kind of pay some attention to that. So I think that's good, that we're going in the right direction.
Christy?
Okay. I was very taken with the youth and the discussion they brought up about affordable health care for the students and young people in our community. And not only that, I would like to see if us as commissioners to really look into affordable health care for our youth, even under mental health. And being involved in emergency service, I see a disconnect that they have now when they treat us when it comes to emergencies. So I think that's something else maybe we could discuss during the retreat.
I have an event I wanted to bring out, so mark your calendars, June 24th, from 2 to 5 at United Way. It's the Center for Participatory Change Black Love event, and this series, it's a monthly series, and this month we're really just gonna be together and be black. So if you identify, which we all do here, as a person, as a black person, please just join us and come. It's June 24th, 2 to 5 at United Way's conference room.
Is this online? So I can
Yes.
share it out? Okay.
Yes,
I'll
and
share a link.
I can share it with you, and then you can disperse the flyer.
Thank you.
I particularly appreciated the IFA's updates. I mean, to me, it was just so thorough and taking us to a whole nother level that was inspiring. And lastly, I was able to attend a reparations convening with some peers that's here and the RJC team. And I just want to encourage us as commission members to really look how this conversation expands beyond the borders of Asheville. And if you haven't had an opportunity to have discussions like beyond this city, I encourage you to do so. And I'll send some stuff to Christine about it. But there's so much movement happening globally, regionally, nationally, and Asheville is on that same map. And so if you haven't had the opportunity, you really want to join some of these monthly Zoom calls and just join in a broader sense of a reparations conversation. Thank you.
Talking about the Kichi Zoom calls. I would encourage every black person in this room that lives in Buncombe County to go to the Reparations Stakeholder Authority of Asheville website. They host a private reparations fund. It's for black people, by black people, run by black people, for us, by us, all that. And sign up and join. I'm not gonna ask who's a member that's sitting in this room, but I know that there are members around the table. I know that there are members in the audience, so I'm encouraging you to go to rsaasheville.org and sign up and be a member and look at the organization. That's all I got.
I think we received good information tonight. I think the IFAs, if we come together during the retreats and work together so we don't have duplicates, I think we'll be do a great job, and I was very impressed with you tonight.
I'm good.
think that I agree with Dr. Tamari that I feel like there's a lot of stuff we're trying to work out and hash out at the retreat. And I don't think that it's going to be able, I don't think all this list is going to be able to be done within 5 hours. So I would recommend that we look into having multiple retreat or ways that we can discuss this list so that we can work it out in full, effectively and efficiently. And I'm not sure if we can do it at this next retreat, but there's been multiple discussions that I've heard from people about immediate recommendations that we can make now without having to wait, or things to address that's happening to our city now that, you know, like Mr. Dwayne has stated, that we're not backing up or we're not putting energy behind. So I think that, I hope that within the retreat, as we address what reparations is, we can look at what actions that we may be able to do before we actually pass our recommendations.
Bernard, Mr. Richardson is not here, but one of the things I know that he would talk about is getting a third party to help us with investments that can drive the commission on and carry us further into the future. And to add to that, I think we need to put more energy behind an internal management structure outside the city and the county.
Dr. Lawrence?
I'm on the board for the Peak Academy, and this information has not been made totally public, but I can share with you that the work you are doing in education reparations is being actualized at the Peak Academy. We have 89 children at the Peak Academy. Apparently, from preliminary results, not one of our children was below proficiency. All of our children were at or above proficiency. In the state of North Carolina, we are singular in that achievement. Not a single district can say that in the state of North Carolina. And so I wish I could share that. Yes. So.
Can I have one alibi? Can I have one alibi? Alibi. I'm asking her for one alibi, which is an addition. Since I'm talking, I'm already exercising the alibi. Many of us have never been around the Hood Huggers tour. Now, Dwayne doesn't know anything about this, what I'm about to ask, but in looking at his tour and some of the things that he offered, there's an opportunity for us to learn, if you are new to Asheville, about the legacy communities. And that might be something we want to consider, is either contracting his agency or working through him to get a Hood Huggers tour for the commission.
Is that a bus tour?
Yes. That's all.
I don't have a comment. I'm just excited. And I'm happy to see everyone. And I know the work that y'all are doing. And I'm just excited to be a part of the process.
That would be good.
Glenda McDowell. At this point, I'm balanced. I'm feeling okay. And I'm waiting on the retreat. My name is Bobette Mays. I want to say thank you to the youth for your input, for the work that you've done, because I work with kids. And as we journey through this process of help for our young people, we wonder if, as our board, because I'm on Project Lighten Up, on our board, when we see kids that have been medicated from the time they were in kindergarten, medication that have been so much more, it's higher levels than white kids. And then what happens to them by the time they go to middle school and high school and they're taken off of that medication. And if that's possibly causing some of the problems that we see as they get older because they have been medicated so long. because I see them. And so I appreciate your comments, and we will take them. Thank you.
Bill Renee Carson. I am so very happy to see these young people involved in reparations. Many years ago, the city of Asheville sponsored the youth council, and we were like the city council, just students. So, you know, we don't see much of that anymore. We're still seeing the harm done every day to our communities. But I am very passionate about this project. There's still a lot of work to be done.
Joyce Harrison, and I have a couple of things. From putting retreats together, this is a lot of stuff to go through. Usually you don't have this much stuff in an agenda for a retreat. So I like to see it condensed a little bit. I'm like you, I like to see it condensed a little bit, because when I talked about the breakout sessions would get a lot more of this done than what this will get done for what we're going to need to do. Because we actually as a group need to be talking about how we're going to interact with each group and each IFA. And if you start putting all of this, it's just a lot. And I want to see us kind of condense it to where the IFAs can actually talk to each other, not just go around the table and do the discussion, but be able to put meat together and come away with an idea or some solutions of how we're going to blend it all together. And that's what retreats are supposed to be for. Second, I want to thank the youth again, and I'm with you. I would like to see the youth do some of the work that we can't do on the foot basis of talking to the elderly people in the community. To me, they put on the board that they wanted to know how they wanted to be involved or how could they get involved. Well, this is it. The door is open to let them do something. And with that interview that I saw her do with Dr. Mullen, it was like, this is it. That is what they can do. And so if they could get a lot of people from like these apartment complexes, we know that a lot of the people that left the homes were put in projects and homes like this. So we need to listen to what they have to say too. Okay? And I think the last thing is, you guys are doing good. Thank you. I'm appreciative of where I am today. Okay.
Oh, my name is Roy Harris, and about an hour before I came to this meeting, I was sitting on the Southside Community Farm Pavilion with a young lady that was a graduate of UNCA, who's gone back to her hometown in Costa Rica, and our longest conversation was about the reparation process here in Asheville. And I have no doubt that when she gets back to Costa Rica, a process is going to be started, because she was very passionate when she was here, and she still has that passion within her. And I didn't realize, she says, oh yeah, lots of black folks in Costa Rica now. Haiti, they come from Haiti. And she was saying, oh, sound like they're going through the same thing black folks are here. And so just want to let you know, Dr. Mullen, you made a difference. She knew who you were. I think she had taken a couple of your classes. And so now, worldwide, this whole process is going worldwide. And a lot of people, when I go out of town, people ask me about it.
Well done.
What are you doing? So keep up the great work.
Chris Gordon. I'm very encouraged about the kind of consensus building around a hub, a center for African Americans in Asheville, which will provide all services and educational opportunities. I know that our education IFA has been talking about that for quite a while. I also want to encourage folks to continue to focus on accountability. And maybe that's a big issue for our retreat, is how are we going to hold the city, the county, everybody accountable for these recommendations that we're going to give them. And I guess the third thing is somehow extending the authority of the commission, or as Mr. Oliphant has suggested, some other authority that can keep this going for years for the future, as opposed to ending in 2 years. Thank you.
My name is Norma Baines, and I have enjoyed hearing the updates from the IFAs. I also enjoyed hearing from the youth. That was very touching. And of course, I'm on the health and wellness, and affordable care is a big deal. It's a really big deal. And of course, we are, as a focus group, we are looking into affordable care also, and mental health, because that's important. And I have enjoyed the session today, just hearing from the young people and what everybody else is saying. I'm looking forward to the retreat, to see what we do there, and interacting with the other groups that are here, like education, economics, and criminal justice, and the rest of it.
My name is Dwayne Barton, and I was just sitting here thinking about what I didn't tell you about Burton Street. Another one is this highway. It's $1 billion project. $54 million of the project is supposed to go to African American businesses. So we started a new LLC to get in the game. And the goal is not just for us, but to connect with other organizations or individuals who may not have the capacity to get their certifications to bid on a project. And we have these opportunities surrounding us. I feel that, this process should be like the seed. To me, I think this is a huge seed that we try to plant, but we got to make sure the garden is ready for it. And the other thing, I didn't say, Burton Street is not the only one. There's a number of communities who got plans and hustles that they was trying to see for years. And then we're going to go back to them and say, hey, we got another dream for you to believe in. But they're going to say, what about these? Right. So if we can't get the momentum off these, how are we going to create a new one?
Commissioners, thank you. Are there public comments? Are there people who have signed up?
Nobody signed up.
Nobody signed up. It is 8 o'clock, and I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second. All those in favor?
Comment cards.